Do you want to up your influencer marketing game? Do you want to meet more influencers, have a better working relationship with influencers? You might even be struggling to talk to them in the first place or even get them to talk about your product and post to their audiences. Well, at Winning with Shopify, we have teamed up with Affluencer, which is an app you can install on Shopify, and it comes with a 30-day trial. And even in those first 30 days, you can meet a load of influencers and start promoting your product. So there's no excuse. Go and install the app, start the 30-day trial, and give it a go yourself and see how you get on. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Winning with Shopify podcast. If you've never tuned in before, my name's Nick and thank you so much for tuning in. If you have tuned in before, I have a stat for you that I also shared a few weeks ago as well. 80% of you guys that are tuning in and watching this are not subscribed on any channel. YouTube, Apple Podcasts, anything else. So guess what I'm going to say? Please do not hit the subscribe button. And that might be failed reverse psychology, but please do subscribe. It means so much to us and it makes such a difference to the show, and it helps more people find out about what we're doing as well. If you haven't already, head over to wwspodcast.com, which is our website, hit Growth Hub and sign up to the Growth Hub. We are on a mission to build the world's biggest Shopify community, and we need you guys to take part in that. Because if you don't sign up, we haven't got the biggest community and we haven't got all the coolest people in there as well. So if you work in e-commerce, you work on Shopify, or you work on another platform, it doesn't necessarily have to be Shopify, do go and sign up to the Growth Hub. We're running little roundtable sessions. People are discussing all kinds of problems, challenges, ideas, and supporting each other in finding solutions to that as well. So we've got a few events coming up that are quite cool, which we'll talk about a little bit more over the next few weeks and months. Anyway, today I've got the most amazing topic written on my notes in front of me, which I'm super excited to chat about. And I've got an amazing colleague and guest with me today called Dan, who's from the Spec team. So Dan, without further ado, welcome back to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Nick. It's good to be back.
Well, it's great to have you here, and some people might recognize your face from either, I don't know if we've had you on the podcast itself, but you're definitely on webinars and other things as well, so might be a familiar face to some of you, which is always good fun. But today, Dan, we're going to be talking about Shopify Advertising on Google, 3 strategies to scale profitably is obviously the title that you and I have come up with to look at. But before we do that, just so everyone's like, all right, Nick, this Dan guy looks fantastic, he looks the part. What do you do all day, Dan? What's your role in the team here at Spec?
So I'm a PPC consultant. So every day I'm on Google Ads, working with a lot of Shopify brands on there, working e-commerce and lead generation. So I suppose for your audience, Nick, it's going to be mostly the e-commerce that we're going to be interested in. So I create Google PPC campaigns for my clients, monitor them, expand them, and just get the best results I can for my clients. It's essentially the very condensed form of what I do. But yeah, I'm sure we'll get into a bit more detail as we talk.
Yeah, you definitely don't just do that on repeat. That is a big part of it, of course. But there's loads of other things, which, as you say, we're going to talk about. And so, I mean, just from my perspective, everybody, like Dan is part of the team here and he manages PPC campaigns all day, every day. So I hope there's some really good stuff in here for you, whether you're just starting out, you've been running for 20 years and you think Google Ads used to work and it's not working anymore, or it's always worked, but I think it could be working better. We're going to try and outline some strategies to help you guys with that. But I guess a barometer we need to talk about first, Dan, before we dive into the 3 strategies. What does good look like on Google?
Yeah, so that's a really good, big question. So my first answer would be it depends on the client, right? And that's a very generic, sort of boring answer, doesn't help anyone. But it sort of does. So in e-commerce, I would say, what does good look like? Really, it's the ROI. So how much are you spending and how much are you getting back from your PPC campaigns? And that's like the very top level. That's the thing we're looking at every single day, making sure we're hitting this ROI target. But then the bigger question is, what is the ROI target? So for your business, how much can you spend and how much do you need to make back from that spend? So if you spend $1,000, do you need to make back $4,000 or do you need to make back $10,000 for it to be profitable for you? So a big part of my job is understanding what is profitable for my clients and then getting their campaigns to that level of profitability. And of course, we're always trying to beat that. We don't just go, let's hit this benchmark and that's it, we can leave it. We want to get as high as we can. But the first thing, maybe it's not good, but it is the bare minimum. That's what I think we need to know, is what is the lowest the ROI can be. And then from there, it's like, where is good? Is it double that? And then where is really, really good, where it's triple that? And you can work towards those as you go.
Yeah. And I think for anyone who's sitting there going like, oh, I don't know what my ROI target is or whatever. Like I'll give you a quick breakdown of that, guys. But we've spoken about it so much in so many different episodes. I like to call it. The simple part of e-commerce maths. Is one of the easier things to understand. So what you need to do is take how much am I going to pay to Google? What am I going to pay for agency fees, staff fees, or anything else to manage that spend? We'll add all of that together. Then I need to also add to that what my product cost is. And it often is just the product cost is the kind of most basic level people go to. So if your products cost you $3 to bring them in and you sell them for 10, you have a 70% margin. So 70% of that $10 is margin, and 3 is what you is what you have to pay for that product. And you should include all costs, even import tax, the cost of buying the product in the first place, getting it, transport costs, getting it to your warehouse, etc., etc. So as Dan says, we try and work out the ROI on that. And I would say as well, Dan is absolutely signed up to this club in the PPC team here. That everyone in our PPC team, they're competitive to beat themselves, but not each other is always the thing. So I think every day when we get in, the first thing in the morning is like, oh my gosh, have you seen what this client's done today? Have you seen what that client's done? Have any of you guys looked at so and so's Looker Studio? Oh my gosh, something's gone wrong in this client, and we need to fix that. But it very much brought in by yourself and a few others, Dan. That ethos of like, actually, let's just be on top of this all the time, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a bit of an addiction almost. It's keeping on top of the client's performance, looking on those data studios and seeing how they are performing and trying to find those areas where you can improve the performance. But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. And the only thing I'd add just on the on what good looks like on Google as well is we will talk about this a bit more as we go through the 3 strategies. We also definitely stay around to the end. We have some bonus tips. Dan and I are going to be sharing a couple of the ingredients in our secret sauce for success here. I've made that strap line up. We're not one of these agencies that's always got this big brand campaign to go to town with, but we are going to share some of the things we tend to find in new client accounts that we fix quite quickly and we see ROI increase. So make sure you stick around for those at the end. Because Dan and I are going to share some of these bits. But as I say, the only thing I'm going to add just to what good looks like on Google Ads is that top line metric of ROI is super important, but everything underneath that, they are quite real problems and challenges and solutions and successes for brands as well. So it might be that actually everyone's only purchasing a single product. So one of the biggest metrics for us right now is we want them to buy 2. It might be that people only ever buy once from us. So we want to get a repeat order. And we're going to talk about some of that as we go through. But just to say ROI is always number 1. And if it's not number 1, it means you haven't done your maths, because if you've done your maths, it will be number 1. There's lots of other things underneath as well. We're not just going, the ROI is green, so see you later. And even the ROI can be broken down, and we're going to talk about that. But Dan, kick us off. We're going to talk about 3 strategies. Strategy number 1, what is it? And tell us how it works and why it's so important to new accounts that we start working on.
Yeah, so the first strategy that we want to discuss is diversifying your campaign types. So essentially with Google Ads, there's several different campaign types you can run. And the leading campaign types, which you guys listening at home might know, is Performance Max. So this is like a automated campaign type that serves on all the different Google channels. So it can be on search, on shopping, on display, on YouTube. It's basically, you give it your product feed and Google, it will say it does the rest. It doesn't quite. There's a few caveats to that. But it's essentially, yeah, we wish. Yeah, it would be nice if it did. But so that's like the main type of campaign that if you're running shopping campaigns, you're going to be using Performance Max. It tends to get the best results. There used to be some old campaign types, different types of shopping campaigns that used to be really good. They no longer exist. So we're kind of forced into using Performance Max, which is where the majority of your spend will go. But a really good way to improve your ROI is to actually diversify the campaign types you're using. So what you'll see on Performance Max is when you hit a certain amount of budget spent in those campaigns, your ROI will tend to plateau and then maybe even dip depending on how much you're spending. So really you find out what that threshold is. So see how much can I spend? Well, my ROI maintains at this really good level, and then you'll see it plateau. And then you sort of, what I would say is ask yourself, are there any other channels on Google we can use where we can get a higher ROI than what we'd be seeing with just Performance Max? So this could be a search campaign, this could be a shopping campaign, could even be display in some instances. You also have like video campaigns through YouTube and discovery campaigns as well. So really the way I look at it is find out when you're hitting that point on your Performance Max campaign. So that is where the majority of your budget should go, or at least in 99% of clients, that's where it should go. But once you hit that, look at the other channels, because there is a lot you can do with these. And I'm sure we'll discuss those in a bit more detail in a moment.
Yeah, the first thing I wrote down when you started explaining like all these other channels is shiny objects. I think a lot of brands do get distracted by like Google Discovery. Oh, what's that? How can I use Google Discovery? That's a cool word. What channel is that, guys? And then when you actually start running a campaign on it, you're like, I can get a good ROI, but not spending more than about 0.1% of my entire budget. So I think, as you say, Dan, like focus on, keep the main thing, which is going to be something like Performance Max. I guess the conundrum we find ourselves in with PPC a lot of the time is clients will often say like, oh, I've just had, we've got $20,000 a month to spend on our campaigns. I've just been given another $2 to invest in a YouTube campaign. And we sit there and go, oh, guys, like, it might help. It probably won't. It's going to take us months, if not years, to really learn how YouTube as a whole new channel is going to work for our business and brand. And we should embark in that. But there's always that challenge in the back of our minds, isn't there, Dan, going like, if we put that 2,000 into Performance Max and take it from 20 to 22, we know we're getting a 10 to 1 ROI in there. We know that's $20,000 more dollars. So why wouldn't we do that? And it's sometimes you see the marketing manager's face. We obviously, we work on our communication and we break it very gently, but you see the marketing manager's face going, oh no, if I'd also put the budget to shoot the video into PMax, that was another 5,000. And like, you start doing the numbers and you're like, we're already committed here and it's a bit of a non-starter. So I think there is always that tendency to want to chuck all the budget into PMax, which is, you can see it from both sides. Like we have to make some probably testing decisions here, don't we?
I would just add, in terms of some of those other campaign types, especially display, it's very much the upper funnel. So Google in general, we're going to be at the bottom of the funnel, right? So when users are pretty close to purchasing, ready to purchase, we're going to appear and they're going to buy. Obviously, Performance Max does the whole funnel, but it's very focused towards the bottom, which is why ROI is our leading metric that we're going for, because we're there for the sales. And then the question kind of changes when you're looking at display, where you're then at the upper funnel, where you're trying to drive this awareness, you're trying to make people know who your brand is, maybe search for your brand. And sometimes the issue is, and sometimes it's maybe even better to split them. If you've got a display campaign, you don't want to be monitoring that on ROI. You want to be monitoring that on brand uplift that you're going to achieve through that, which is unfortunately a lot harder to measure, but it is a different goal. So sort of communicating that with the clients, or if you have your own business, is just making sure you're aware of what is the purpose of each different channel that you're using. Obviously, Performance Max and shopping is ROI. Display, it could be something else. So identify that and maybe work towards a different goal there.
Yeah, and I think it's hard, isn't it? Because I've heard quite a lot of like big global speakers and stuff use the phrase that like illogical thinking is the most logical thing to do. So logic says like, okay, the numbers are telling us PMax has got this great conversion rate, so let's just pump more money in, like I said, and that's always the easiest thing to do. And probably the easiest thing to justify to your boss as well, or to yourself, to go, well, we were making a 10 to 1 ROI. I added $2,000 more and we're making a 9.8 to 1 ROI. Like ROI's come down slightly, but I've still got way more profit than I had. That's a great output, isn't it? Everyone's happy with that. But actually the illogical thing to do is go, that's my best performing channel. And just, as you say, display's telling me I'm making nothing back or very little, because as you say, it's very hard to track. So that direct channel you see in Google Analytics, or just people phoning up randomly and how did you find us? Oh, online. And you're like, right. So Google Ads could be driving all of that and you have no idea. It could be Meta Ads, or it could be more likely a combination of all of them mixed with some irrational humans who don't know what they want, where they clicked, why they clicked, or even why they bought. Let's face it, to be happy. That is the root of all conversions in Google Ads is happiness. People want to be happy. And we'll talk about that more in strategy number 2, because that's quite an important part actually of the whole mix. But I think certainly, yeah, as we say, like PMax tends to be the best channel to use within Google Ads. But I guess a really tough question then, Dan, at what point, or a better question, how do you know at what point you should start diversifying outside of Performance Max for your shopping ads to sell products on Shopify?
That's a really big question, and it's something you learn within the account as you're working on it. So it's like I was mentioning earlier, where you see this plateau in ROI, and the way I think about it really is, once you have a little bit of experience, a couple of months where you're hitting this plateau, your spend's going up and your ROI sort of leveling off or maybe even going down, you can extrapolate slightly from that and say, if I do this again next month, I expect the same results. I expect the ROI. So I spend an extra $1,000 and the ROI drops by 1 point. So depending on your spend, essentially you might just be getting back 1-to-1 on that additional spend that you've made. So you can do quite a simple calculation to say, okay, Performance Max is going to give me a 1-to-1 here with this additional spend. Can search or even display, can it get me 2-to-1 or 3-to-1? So although it's below Performance Max, overall from that additional spend, you're actually getting a better ROI. I hope that answers the question, Nick. I know it's sort of
it does indeed.
complicated.
It is very complicated, and I think that, as you said right at the start, the politician's answer always stands true, which is like, it depends. But I think it's a very important talking point, and I love the fact you said very much what we do at Spec for a lot of clients is like we test something and go, hey client, we're now spending this on this display campaign, and that's X% of budget. We've seen no uplift this end. But that probably coupled with 3 other things you're doing, more people are looking for your brand on Google now. More people are arriving on your site through direct. It wasn't an overnight thing. All this is test and optimize and keep building. So it's probably contributing somewhere. The most important question is, of all your advertising spend right now, all of that, as I said earlier, all of that plus agency fees and everything and price of products, are you profitable? Are you profitable as a business? If yes, great. Have we got more or less profitable? And we might have got less profitable but higher volume, so more profit but less as a percentage, which is very normal when brands grow. You tend to kind of go like this, and then they have this massive drop where they become super profitable again. So their profit margins get tighter and tighter and tighter, and then suddenly they expand where they go, all right, instead of paying this supplier to manufacture products, opening our own factory now. So what they used to take as a margin to do what they do, we're keeping that margin, and that margin is getting added. So there's loads more we can do in that. But I want to jump into strategy number 2 for 2 reasons. One is it's next on the list, and number 2 is it's my favorite. This is the thing I enjoy probably the most about what we do as an agency and what e-commerce brands don't do enough of and need to do more. So Dan, what on earth am I talking about? Why am I so excited?
Yeah. Well, this is sort of outside of my specific remit of PPC, but as an agency, we do work on this a lot. And this is all the non-PPC stuff is the way we would describe it. So it's all the stuff on your site or to do with your product, everything that's not PPC that will drive conversion rates and ROI on PPC. So this could be CRO on your site. This could be even could be price increases of your products, perhaps at work, or price reductions. Everything outside of PPC that will have a knock-on effect, because PPC is in no means isolated outside the rest of the business. So yeah, there's a lot that can be done, and we do a lot of work on this where we do CRO audits for our clients, where we basically go through their site and pick out the pain points that users will be seeing on the site that may be driving down your conversion rate or driving down your average order value, and improve those, and then PPC will improve, and then not just that, all your other channels will improve as well.
Absolutely. And I feel like we could do a whole 12-month series just on this alone. Let me throw in both ideas, and some of these things are based on real experience just in the last 3 months. Stuff that we've changed, stuff that we've done with clients that has had a big impact. Number 1 is, and excuse my French here, but what the bloody hell do you stand for? I don't know if you guys caught our episode with Ben Miller from Worth Hats a few weeks ago. Ben was incredible talking. I mean, we literally started the episode by saying his friend committed suicide. And I thought, how on earth does this relate into marketing and Shopify? He built the business off the back of honoring his friend Jacob. And Jacob's surname was Worth. And Jacob wanted to start a hat brand. So he started a hat brand. And I forget the number, but we put it on the podcast. I think it was 7,000 counseling sessions for people that are feeling suicidal is what they have organized using the profit that their business has made. That is a mission. That is something they stand for. So immediately, as soon as someone lands on the site, it's not all their problems aren't solved as a merchant, as an e-commerce store, but it gives customers something to buy into. They still have to go through all the work and energy of shooting content, delivering that in a message, A/B testing, UX, updates, CRO, all of those things still need to happen, but they have a purpose and a meaning. And I think you can kind of look at this on such a macro scale of why do I buy this product from you? And the quickest way to work out if you are a good option for customers or not, to work out if your conversion rate and ROI is any good or not, is just look on competitors' sites and go, okay, we sell, I don't know, this, we sell glassware like this, but we're double the price of anybody else. Why are we double? Are we clearly explaining the value of us being double the price of anybody else? Go on Google and search for your products and see your products alongside everybody else's products and go, how do we look compared to everybody else? And I think, as you rightly said, Dan, it's pretty much outside of the PPC technician or practitioner's remit. But I believe it should be, which is why it is becoming part of your remit and everybody else here at our agency is actually we're trying to be more of a consultancy than an agency. So we're consulting clients on when someone lands on your site, it's a bit rubbish. They don't want to buy. It doesn't say who you are. And then when we ask the client, like, tell me why I should buy from you and no one else, 99% of the time, the client reels off a whole list of things that are not on the website. And you challenge them and you say, right, those things are not on your website. And say, yeah, they are. We plant a tree every time somebody buys from us. Like, why do customers care about that? And if you ask your customers, and the client did ask their customers about 2 years ago on something similar to that, and customers came back and said, I had no idea you did any of that. I did not know that when I bought a product, you gave money to this charity for something. Absolutely no idea. And the client was like, right, so we're doing good stuff and we're doing it in secret, when actually we should tell customers the impact that they are having in the world. Now, it doesn't have to be a charitable thing. It could just be the fact that when you buy our product, we have the best guarantee. It's got a lifetime warranty. We will, if it breaks, we'll repair it. It could be that it's made from recycled materials. Like there'll be some sort of edge. And if you don't have one, find one or find out what yours currently is. Because I do think, and it'd be good to get your thoughts on this as well, Dan, like the difference, if you think about any two of our clients, obviously we're not going to name and shame any of you guys because we know you listen to the podcast, but if you just think of two of our clients kind of almost like in a paradox, one that's getting like 10 or 15 to 1 ROI, one that's getting like 1.5 to 1 ROI and like really struggling at that, as you say, that early stage to get to break even nice and quickly. What are some of the paradoxes in like their offering, their websites, and what does it change for you? What does it give you as the guy clicking buttons in Google Ads?
Yeah, so a really big one that I was going to mention, right? It's like when I'm thinking of separate clients and what works well and what doesn't work well, is actually your product range. So it depends on the industry, but if you have a small product range, if you say you only have 300 products in your inventory, even then some of those are out of stock, unfortunately, it will mean Performance Max is going to struggle. Not necessarily going to struggle, but if you have more products, it should perform better. Essentially, the way Performance Max works is the more data it has, the more products it has, it will be better. And that's not exponential. I'm not telling you guys to go and get 6 million products on your site. But if you are really constricted on your overall products, you might hit that threshold, that floor of how much you can spend quite early on, just because the search volumes for relevant searches to your products are lower. So you're going to be getting like a 90% impression share on every product you have, and you're going to struggle to scale it from there. But if you expand your product range, which you can use PPC insights to do this, see what is popular, what's selling well, look at the search volumes for products like your products and begin to expand. And I see it fairly often is clients with a larger set of products tend to outperform clients with small products. And that doesn't fit everyone, but depending on your business, it might be very relevant to you.
I think it's a really good point. And actually, as you'll know, Dan, and some of our listeners will have heard, like Inventory Manager is one of our partners at the moment. And part of that is managing your inventory. So actually, if you had, say you've got 50 products right now, Performance Max is going to struggle a little bit at 50. It's probably more 100, somewhere between sort of 100 and I would say about 50,000 starts to reach a kind of, all right, now actually we need to make sure it's broken down into segments and categories. But yeah, it's somewhere above sort of 50 to 100 products. Say you were sitting there going, we want to have 200 products, but I don't want to stock them all. Just buy 1 to 5 units of each of those things. And using something like Inventory Planner, which is our partner to do inventory management, you can then start to actually analyze like how many products are we selling, which ones are we selling, and you also then you can give it all the information and say like, okay, in 3 months, I need to order 3 months in advance for that product, whereas this one I need to order 3 days in advance, and it'll watch the sales and constantly notify you and say like, right, this product range here is going to sell out if you don't order in the next 7 days, and it's super popular, and it analyzes all your products going back. So that's one way you can increase your inventory without like spending billions buying all these different products and stuff. Obviously, speaking with artistic flair at $1 billion. But the other thing you can do, which we spoke to, I've completely forgot which brand it was. There's 3 brands in mind, but there was one of them that we spoke to a few months ago that they were saying that they started drop shipping all of their new products. So they found someone that would basically make them for them and put their logo on and send them out on their behalf. And anything that did well, they just went, great, I'll have 500 units of that one, please. And then they put it in their warehouse. So without having to do any stock, and they basically just said like drop shipping, we're going to have almost a no profit margin. That's fine just to see what sells. Like that is a basic, if it's no margin and we're not losing any money, it's free to find out what product to stock. So there are definitely ways you can do that.
And even from a purely PPC perspective, we'll be able to tell you exactly how much we spent on this product to get those sales. Because what you also want to know is, well, if we spent £1,000 and made back £10,000 of sales, then it makes loads of sense to start stocking loads of it. But if you have to spend, if your ROI is not so good, then perhaps you look at the other products which are performing better, because essentially you should be able to repeat that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm taking lots of notes down. There's so much I want to, because you and I work in PPC. It's not like a normal guest, everyone, where I get to just fire questions and go, oh, that's interesting. There's so much I want to share as well. So I'm just working out exactly what to share. I've got almost a whole page of notes already. But one thing I would say actually is, we're talking about like the macro stuff at the moment. There's obviously lots of micro things as well that we can do that might make those little gains, the 1% here, the 1% there. You've done quite a lot of CRO audits yourself, haven't you, Dan, for our clients, off the back of, we share collectively as a team what's working, what's not across different sites. But give us some examples of some of the things you would change as the PPC person on the site to drive PPC higher, just on a small level, if we're not ready to talk about kind of brand mission at this stage.
Yeah, absolutely. So first one is get your free delivery threshold right, if you offer one. So if it's, hey, spend X dollars or X pounds, you get free delivery, figure out what is the optimal price point for this to be. And when I say figure it out, I don't mean like do loads of crazy maths and brainstorming. We can just test it, just nudge it one direction or another and see what happens to your conversion rate and your average order value, and find that point with the particular products you have now where it is the best. And I'm really shocked by how impactful this can be on your
You
your
had a
ROIs.
client recently, didn't you?
Yes.
We know he listens to the podcast. So hey, you know who you are. So hello. But yeah, tell us what happened, because that was fascinating in such a short time frame as well, wasn't it? To learn how important it was.
Yeah, so essentially, the free delivery threshold was bumped up by a fair amount. It was up by a third from what it used to be, and ROI in PPC dropped by 3 points. It was at about 9-10 to 1, and it dropped to about 6.5 ish to 1 when this happened. And me and the business owner, we had a conversation about it, and we identified it. We weren't sure that was the issue, because there could be an issue within the campaigns, but we said, we don't know that this is the issue, but what we can do is we can find out if it is. So let's turn it back, turn the free delivery threshold back to what it was previously. And if nothing happens to our ROI and your overall revenue, then we know, okay, that's not the issue. Let's start making these big changes. But if it does go, then we know that's what the issue is. So we tried it, and the ROI pinged straight back up almost immediately within a day. And
what a relief.
Yeah, it was. I was ready to restructure everything, but massive learning there.
And I think it's interesting though, isn't it? Because I guess most people who are listening to this, you're probably tuning in, waiting for us. And we joke about this internally sometimes, quite sarcastically, like waiting for us to tell you where the magic button is. You just click that and ROI goes up, and there isn't one. But how fascinating is it for that business? Delivery made the free delivery threshold, just free delivery by this amount, made such a difference. Do you ever find that in your warehouse you have dead stock? You can't sell it, no one wants to buy it, and you can't get a refund on it. Or alternatively, you're missing inventory in your warehouse that you need. You've got sales coming in and you're low on stock, and you haven't ordered more stock in time. All these things hit profit, and I've been there. I've run my own Shopify store and had exactly that problem. But we've partnered it up with Inventory Planner, who have the most incredible app to help you manage that and forecast exactly what products, what SKUs, even down to what color of product you need to order in advance to make sure stock levels remain consistent throughout. They're also running a 7-day boot camp, and if you want to go and sign up to that, it's 7 emails over 7 days, and it takes the same amount of time as your morning coffee. And in 7 days, like me, you can become an inventory management pro. Both links are in the description. Enjoy. I guess if we can alternate a couple of these, like one of the ones I saw recently that I thought was incredibly powerful is on one of our clients' websites, we compared their product to a competitor, and they had the same image, and our client was £1 more expensive and didn't offer free delivery, and this other site did. You'd never heard of our client, but you had heard of this other brand. They have stores all over the UK. And so I was looking at that, and I just put it in front of the client and went, well, that's a bit rubbish, isn't it? And there's nothing we can do about that. Nothing. The finance director happened to be on the next call, partly because I invited him, but he happened to be on the next call. And I just put that up on the screen. He took one look at it, he goes, yeah, that's ridiculous. We need to offer free delivery. We can drop all our prices by £4 lower than them. So drop all our prices by £5. So we're automatically better. Oh, and all right. And I'll put a little bit of extra funding into photography. So we make sure we've got our own product image that looks more premium than theirs all the time. So now you can't actually recognize it's the same product, but we'll look more premium at a lower price. We're now competitive. And it was like, there was this kind of moment of me, I tried to roll my eyes too much on the call in front of the managing director and the marketing people just to say like, isn't it obvious? Like, I'm glad he sees it the way I do. But I was shocked. Like, I'm definitely not one to just say like lower all your prices and you'll make more profit. Quite the opposite. It's a race to the bottom at that point. But just in that one situation, the £3 or £4 made very little difference to anybody's margins. The price was still well up in the hundreds, but we're now competitive. And actually ROI, like I think it was over 24 hours after that, we'd gone from about 2.4 to 1 on Google to 5. Just the next 2 days we're at 5 to 1, and it came down a little bit after that, but it is consistently higher. So you see the impact such as small things had, and we haven't done the photography yet. That was just the price. So I think being competitive on price or being competitive on the offer around the price is so important.
Well, it's so black and white on Google, right? So the way it's displayed, you have the bar of all the products on the top of your search results, and you're just going to scan left to right. Absolutely not. And so it is something to definitely bear in mind. And if you do have the ability to be more competitive with price, it can have a huge difference. I was going to
even this morning. I was going to say, like, one I'd love you to share, actually, which we were looking at this morning as a team, weren't we? It was looking at the average order value with multi-buy.
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of our clients in the fashion industry, they used to use multi-packs. So, essentially, they sell T-shirts and you get a pack of 5 or a pack of 7 or a pack of 3. And they've changed their offering to be multi-buy, which essentially gives the user much more choice. So, instead of buying packs, you buy 3 shirts for X pounds and 5 shirts for another X pounds. It's huge. It's just making sure that message is communicated on the site as well. So it's great having these multi-buy deals, and it's something they are implementing now, is to make sure it's visible on the actual products, because when a user clicks on your product from Google, they're going to land on the product page, not the collection page. And if you're not telling them about the multi-buy on the product page, then they're not going to know, and you're not going to get those increased conversions.
And I guess that as well, like the actual product will just be the single item at the lowest price. And then when you land, then it upsells and goes, do you just want one of these or do you want 5? And you can choose all 5 colors and sizes as well. Like, so you might get 3 for you and 2 for your partner, which is also quite a good way to, because they sell unisex and the multi-buys are across men's and women's. But it's quite a complicated message sometimes, isn't it? To try and get across that message just in a single web page. And then you times that by mobile pixels instead of desktop. And there can be a lot to clutter in. And we both, Dan and I and the rest of the team here, we know we can be guilty, especially on SEO more than PPC, is saying, hey, web guys, can you add this and add this and add this? And Google wants a breadcrumb and all this other stuff. And by the time you finish with it, you're like, oh my gosh, what a mess. So always look at it from a brand point of view and get a designer to actually get his crayons out, or get her to actually look at it properly and work out the weighting of this. And as we said, start to test stuff, make one change and see what difference it makes. Or A/B test things, have version A with the new thing and version B without it, and see which one customers prefer.
Yeah. I was going to mention product recommendations, Nick. I know you've spoken about this a lot on your show, and it's so easy on Shopify to just get an app that will do this. And your average order value, I'm not going to promise will go up, but it probably will. You can tell customers about what other products they might want. I know there's AI integration in this as well. And the other bonus of this is when they're in their checkout and you have one sign that's saying spend X pounds more to get free delivery. And then on their left of the checkout, there's look at these products you might already be interested in that are pretty similar to that bit you're missing out. Chances are the customer's going to add that to their basket, and your average order value is just doubled.
Yeah. I actually literally had that when I was ordering some protein the other day, and it said you are currently like £3 below the threshold, but for £5 you can get a second protein shaker. And you'd never know, any of you guys who watch on YouTube and Instagram and stuff, that I work out and drink protein by the looks of me, but I do. And when I was buying the protein, it literally said that, and now I was like, I'm £2 above the threshold. I've just added £5 to my cart. And then I remember looking at a client's analytics the next morning and went, do you know what? If I added £5 to every single order, they get 5,000 orders a month. That's 25,000 extra just by doing what you've just explained very well, Dan. So I think we'll draw a line on strategy number 2 now, because we could go on all day about this. But the point being, guys, is you have to optimize that landing page experience and do it with whoever is working on PPC. Don't just do it and tell them, because if you do something and tell them, they might go, oh, okay, thanks for letting me know. When actually they're sitting there thinking like, you idiots, you've broken everything. Like, know what, or they might have some data to contradict that. So there is a bigger rule in there. And I talk about this a lot on the show anyway, of like, keep all of your teams informed as to what you're doing. So when you've got an idea, get everybody to feed into it, go away and come up with the execution, get everyone to feed back on it, but keep it quantified and focus on the customer. Like, I don't like it when people come back and say, oh, I don't like red. And it's like, I don't care if you like red or not. I want to know if it converts better or not. Literally, and I've used this example of those, like this podcast, bright pink is not a Nick Truman color. That is not a color I get out of bed in the morning going, do you know what color I want to see everywhere today? Bright pink. But more of you do click on it when you find it across all the different platforms because it's bright pink. It works, and I love it for that reason. So yeah, try and keep it on point as to what customers are actually going to engage with. But Dan, before we spend 5 hours talking about CRO and all the amazing things to do for clients on it, strategy 3, before we get into bonus tips, what is strategy number 3?
Yep. Strategy 3 is spending your budget where it works. So slightly countering beyond the performance max point from earlier, but look at your campaign by campaign, and see where the ROI is. I know this sounds super basic and you're probably already doing that. So don't worry, that's not the whole tip. So within Google Ads, there are hundreds of data points that will also show you where your campaigns are working, essentially. So it could be the region that you're advertising in. So within Google Ads, you can break down, if you're in the US, you can look at what states have the best ROI and start pushing budget there. Or it could be in Europe, in England, for example, it could be the city that works best or the county that works best. Beyond that, you can look at gender data. So do women buy your products more, or do men? Or obviously a big proportion of Google users are unknown, but it's still a really big data insight that you can leverage. And then beyond that, you can go down even further into keyword level, see which keywords are converting well, which ad groups are converting well. And then in performance match, you can look which products are converting well, which I did mention slightly earlier, but you can look at each individual product and see where your ROI is being driven and then put more budget behind those products. Or you can look at a product category level, which is sort of defaultly in Google. We do it manually on Shopify on our feed tool, where we're labeling all the products by basically what type of product they are. And then we can analyze that data and we'll know tables sell really well in July and desks sell really well in August. And we're going to make sure we're putting the budget behind what is working. So look into that data and you'll be surprised what you find.
Yeah, I completely agree. And this is probably one of the biggest things we debate internally here. And it's funny because we all agree on something. Someone has a brainwave one afternoon and goes, we've all agreed to split this campaign into this way. I'm going to do it a different way, and it's mega successful. And everyone goes, what? That makes no sense. But it has worked. I can't deny that it's worked really, really well. And I can't argue with that data. And then 6 months down the line, it's not working anymore. Got to split something else, got to change something else. I guess one of the biggest lessons I think we've learned, and correct me if you don't disagree with this, Dan, I think you do, but if you don't, it's absolutely fine. It's a safe space. I think one of the biggest things we've learned actually with Performance Max is if you just leave it running and don't do much to it, it will only show 10, 15% of your products and won't rotate any of the other stuff. And it'll assume it's right. And that's the way it seems to work. So when we come along, and this isn't one of our bonus tips, but I could have added this to the list as well. When we come along and start auditing a new potential client's account and see what they're doing, so often we look in Performance Max and there's been like 0 changes made in the last 90 days. And we're like, what a missed opportunity. That just tells us you are testing absolutely nothing. There's nothing being tested in here. And I think as you've just really well articulated, like those product breakdowns. So if you've got like men's t-shirts are working really well and women's aren't, and they're in the same campaign, the opportunity here is to split them. As you say, put more budget behind men's, but then the women's one, you can now optimize. So you could look at the on-page stuff. You could look at the ad copy you're using in your asset groups. Look at the way the feed's working. Look at who's finding them, the times of day. You mentioned geolocations, like, are people in London converting better than Manchester? Are people in the US converting better than the UK? And also looking at things like, what's the click cost in different countries? And actually, if the click cost is different, we should probably split those campaigns to take advantage of the cheaper click cost with the same conversion rate than the more expensive click cost with the same conversion rate. Like, we should probably split those two things up. As a bonus tip, Dan, if someone's sitting there going, oh my gosh, I've got 1,000 products that are all in one PMax campaign. First of all, you're not alone. That's very normal before we turn up. Where can they go to see that product split, to see what's actually happening in that campaign?
Yeah, so I am still on the old version of Google Ads. So I'm going to tell you from
I
this.
am
It's
not.
up. It's updating
Yep.
in 12 days, which I'm not looking forward to. But on this version, I believe it's the same on the new one. So correct me if I'm wrong, Nick. But go onto your. I go at account level actually. So go account level. Don't select any campaigns. On your left hand side, you'll see a bar that says products. Click on
Yep.
that,
Still
and
there.
then yeah,
Good.
still there. Perfect. Okay, that's one thing I don't have to worry about. Um, so once you clicked on that, it will show you all of your products in a list. But on that list, on the right, sorry, on the top bar, you'll be able to select by product category. By we use custom labels. So that's where I'm saying we label the products by what category they are. So it depends if you've done that or not. But there's several different ways of filtering the products, and from there you'll be able to see different metrics. So it'll be the ROI, the cost, the clicks, everything, but in a category. So that is the step by step to get there.
Yeah, yeah. And just because you go in there and find like 80% of your products never show, or your top five products that spend like 80% of your budget, only two of them are selling, it doesn't mean you can't go in there and just pause products. You have to do that within the asset group in terms of what you're tagging, or what products you're tagging into that campaign. But when you look at it, it's useful to use that data to understand, like, okay, these five products there, or 10 products, or 50, depends on how many you've got in the whole volume. But those few products, that's where most people are landing on my website. There's a billion things I don't know about my customers, but I know that. And I can use that to my advantage to then go, as we said earlier, about like recommended products and landing page optimization, go on those product pages and go, if I landed here and I know nothing about this business, what am I being told, not being told? Can I make a buying decision? What are people asking me that I'm not saying as a result of using that data, as well as what we've just described? Like, you could actually then decide to start splitting the campaign by different product types. But it does get a bit complicated, doesn't it, Dan? Like, this is the debate we have, is how, like, I was going to quote the old film, how do you solve a problem like Maria? How do you solve a problem like Performance Max? Maybe should become my new theme tune to the podcast. Like, some of our clients, they want us to split it, or we decide to split it by going products that do show versus products that aren't currently showing, put a budget behind it. Google wants money, so Google's going to show that campaign and show all those products. Sometimes we split it by different product ranges, so we can spend more budget on t-shirts and shorts in the summer and more on winter coats and trousers in the winter. That makes sense. Sometimes when we launch a sale, we put them all in a sale campaign. Sometimes we get the main campaign. Where do we start? Where does someone who's sitting here going, guys, there's 50 billion ways I could split this campaign of 1,000 products. What do I do first? Obviously, there isn't a definitely do this one, but what are some of the common ones that we tend to focus on, or used to focus on and don't anymore?
Yeah, so obviously product splits, as we've been speaking about for a moment. So pulling out, looking at the data and see what those top performing products are, and maybe have a rest of products campaign and these really specific products that sell well. And that's one that we use quite a lot. Another one would be a location split. So this works especially well in the US, although maybe not quite as well as it has before. That's the thing with Performance Max; it changes so often, but it still does work well. Is where you look into the data and see, is on New York and LA spending 90% of my budget? The answer is most likely yes. But that's what I always see. And then you can split out your campaigns. You have identical campaigns, but they're targeting different regions. That works really well within Performance Max. Another version which you mentioned earlier, Nick, was price point split. So basically export all your products onto a spreadsheet and divide them into highest price point, medium price point, low price point. Essentially, these will have really different click costs. So if you have really expensive products that are like £1,000, £2,000 or dollars, versus the bottom 25% of your products are like $5, $10 each, they're in the same campaign. They can, I mean, there's an argument for it to work together because, well, it might work together, but essentially it can be better to split them, because if you get two orders for $1,000 products from a $500 spend, that's great. But if you only get two orders from a $500 spend and the product's $5, that's really bad. So it's to almost help Performance Max realize the differences between those two types of products. That would be, yeah, three high level splits that you could do of your campaigns right from the get go.
And I guess, just thinking out loud, one of the things we haven't said at all, Dan, is why we split them at campaign level and not asset group or account or anything else. Obviously, at campaign level, guys, that's where you set budget. And we have mentioned that. So you spend more on the range in, say you've got 10 campaigns instead of just everything in one. If 3 of the campaigns are working, you can spend more on those 3, less on the other 7 until you've optimized them. The second thing we've not mentioned is return on investment, or return on ad spend, ROAS target. It's called. So you say to Performance Max, and again, this goes right back to what we were saying right at the start about margins and what does good look like. It looks like we're making a lot more money than we're spending. Everyone's happy with that, right? No complaints. So I think the thing you can do at campaign level is say that the men's t-shirts are getting you a 3-to-1 ROI, but women's are getting you 5-to-1 ROI. By having them in 2 separate campaigns now split, you spend more on the women's one, and you can try and get that 5 to 6 by saying, get me a 5.5 ROAS, return on ad spend. So get me a 5.5, and once you achieve that, now get me a 6. Once you achieve that, get me a 6.5. Or it's not getting 6.5 and the spend's starting to come down now because it can't achieve it. Bring it back down to 6 and let it run. So you're constantly balancing this thing. Again, like I said earlier, if you look at your campaigns and your agency have made no changes in the change history, then they're not worth their weight in salt, because they're not doing anything. Nothing's happening, and they're not testing anything and not making any changes. And those are the kind of things you should be looking at. But just glancing at the clock, Dan, let's go on to our bonus tips. I hope those 3 things have been helpful. Dan, why don't you kick us off? And I've just realized we've just spent the last 10 minutes talking about the first one.
Yes.
These are tips of things this is part of our secret sauce, stuff we look for when we take on a new account, stuff we tend to find is missing, not being done, or being done and is bad. So Dan, kick us off. What's the first one?
Yeah, so the first one is what we've been speaking about is campaign breakdown. So you guys know some of those, there's 1,000 more. Maybe Nick and I will talk about these on another episode in more detail at some point. But that's one, is campaign breakdowns. The next, Nick also referenced this a moment ago, is unmanaged target ROAS. So Performance Max, we tend to put on a target ROAS bidding strategy. So that's like Nick was saying, you tell Performance Max to hit X and you can spend your money. Doesn't quite work like that, but that's the way we're pushing Performance Max. A lot of the time these just get left. So you'll set, well, not us, but an agency will set a target ROAS at 200% and then leave it. And Google will be maybe even outperforming that. But essentially you're not giving Performance Max that extra nudge to go further and get 500%, get 600% and keep going. So that's one really big way to win.
Can I just add a little note on that as well? Yeah. And I've used some pretty colourful language with some even potential clients, which is supposed to be all professional and smiley and client pitches. I'd rather be real with a client and kick off on the right foot of like, you're in the trenches and we're jumping in with you, and let's fight the battle of bad ROI here and improve it. And I think with the unmanaged ROAS targets, I've so often in pitches asked potential clients and brands like, what ROAS do you need to hit? And they'll say, 4-to-1, and we just cannot get close. And then, as Dan has just said, we'll look at it and go, all right, well, you're getting a 2.5-to-1 ROI instead of your 4 target, but you're only telling Google to get a 2. So from Google's point of view, they're smashing it. They're 50% higher than they should be. Not 50% percentage points, but they're getting you £2.50 back, or $2.50 back for every dollar you spend. And you've told it you only want 2. Well, your agency's told Google you only want 2. Well, there you go. That's the root cause of bad ROI. It's not going to improve. Or you've said it, or the agency said it too high and just left it. And if you set it too high and just leave it, Google's going to spend less. It's going to go, I can't achieve a 4-to-1. So you can have 2-to-1, but I'm only going to spend a quarter of your budget. And then, of course, when we come in, it's like, what do you want to see happen? Well, we're not spending enough. We can't grow it. Oh, and the ROI is a bit rubbish. It's like, okay, well, you're not hitting your ROI target. So Google's almost ignoring it and also not spending enough. So like, yeah, that ROAS target is so important. And I'll be honest and say it's quite often it's one of the first things I check when one of my team do say like, this account, I just can't get it to work. Can you have a look? And that's one of the first things I check. And a lot of the time it's been managed, it's been changed. And we need to look at some of the big things with the brand, the landing pages, et cetera, to try and fix this low ROI. But sometimes you look at it and you're like, all right, I'll call it Harry Pottering. I'll change that one box and see what happens. We'll up it from 250 to 300 and see if it see if we get a 3-to-1 ROI now. And if we do go up to 350, do we get a 3 point? It's percent. It's a 350% return. But yeah, I think that's the only bit I would add is that tends to be one of the biggest things we have conversations with potential clients about. And they're almost like, all right, get started and fix it. And we change that. And it's like, we look like heroes overnight. Yeah. And probably shouldn't, that should have been done in the first place.
Yeah, but it's like you're saying, there is often these things are overlooked, and there is that low-hanging fruit that we sort of sweep in and clear up and look like heroes when maybe we're not. But another example is search terms. So if you're running search ads, is you can look at exactly what is triggering your search ad. So you can see every single day what a user has typed. This is the search query that has triggered your ad. And then beyond that, you can see how many clicks you got from that, how many sales you got, how much revenue it generated, and what is the ROI at the search query level. And then from that, you can then negative search queries. And when I say negative, that means excluding them. So your ad is no longer triggering from that search. And I mean, on top of that, it can also show you opportunities. So you look at these search terms, you might see something that's sneaked through one of your phrase match keywords, or maybe even broad match if you're using it. And it will give you some ideas for new campaigns to run. But mostly we use it to remove these searches that we don't want. And if this isn't something you're doing, then there's a massive opportunity there to improve your results.
Cool. And last but not least, I'll cover this one. I love looking at this. So many brands we look at are spending so much of their budget, like such a high percentage of their budget, on their brand name. And this is an age-old debate. If someone's looking up for Dave's t-shirt shop and they're typing that into Google, should Dave advertise on his own name, given that they've already made their decision, they're looking for him and coming to his site? Versus, so we see some agencies that were spending like 80% of the budget just on that and then claiming like, hey, we got a 20 to 1 ROI. How exciting. We come in and go, no, they haven't. Your brand awareness is great. And they're just hoovering it all up. Oh, sorry, vacuuming, Hoover's brand. But yeah, vacuuming all of that up. I did famously walk into one brand who was spending hundreds of thousands of pounds a month on Google Ads. And I said, just turn the whole lot off. Almost every single search term in here is your brand name. Turned it off, no difference in revenue. And I jokingly then said, great, I've got, £240,000 a month as my SEO and PPC budget to spend. Obviously not, we can't pay you that. That's well out of scale. But we saved them that much money just by turning it off because it was targeting so much in brand. It is a brand by brand decision as to whether you target brand, you don't target brand. What some brands have done is agreed to not bid on their own name, but they've agreed that with all their competitors and said, we also won't bid on any of your names. And so if there's only 5 of you in your industry, in your country, that sell the same products, you could all agree we're not going to bid on each other's. So once a consumer's made a decision, they come into your brand, they can just go to your brand and we are not going to advertise on that. We did, luckily not famously, we did get that wrong once in a client's account and we got a phone call incredibly quickly to say, you need to turn that advert off and turn it off right now. You're going to cause me a whole world of pain, because they had the smallest ad budget of all of their competitors. So if they were going to start doing it, everyone was going to outbid them. It's going to cause major problems for them. So yeah, it's a brand decision, but I think it's important that you as the brand themselves know, what am I spending on brand? So that's either repeat orders or people that have made their buying decision. What am I spending on non-brand, to know that's the bit the agency are really achieving for me. That's the bit I wouldn't have if we weren't running ads on Google. And so when you look at, as we said a lot about scalability, what a lot of brands do is they don't know that, and Performance Max is targeting their brand and everything else, and they keep increasing budget. Once they're spending as much as they can on brand, it's only the non-brand part of PMax that can increase, and it just gets less and less profitable and they struggle to grow. And that has been quite a common, I'd say over the last like 12, maybe 18 months, that's been quite a common brief that we've got from new clients coming in. So if you don't know how much you're spending on brand versus non-brand within PMax, so it's not, if that doesn't include if you just have a brand search campaign, PMax will be targeting brand. And if you don't know how much you're spending on each, you got a little bit of a problem, and you need to solve that problem. Anything to add on that at all, Dan?
No, I would absolutely agree. Yeah, especially with the scalability point, it's hard to scale a brand on PPC, but Performance Max we can scale. So distinguish the two is the most important point.
Absolutely. Well, looking at time, we're going to wrap things up and come into land here. But Dan, I want to thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope you've enjoyed being on the podcast and chatting about PPC.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, Nick. It was really good to be here.
Great. Well, great to have you, Dan. Great to have you all tuning in as well. And make sure you check out the Growth Hub. Come join it, meet everybody, come chat to me and some of my team and all the amazing brands that we've got in there as well. And come to some of the roundtables we're running. So loads going on and loads to support you guys with. Thanks for supporting the show. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. And we'll see you again next week. Does your email marketing suck? Do you wish it converted better and integrated better with your store? Well, there is a solution. We've partnered with Seguno, who are an email platform that is built into Shopify, which means you don't have to leave Shopify to go and manage your email campaigns. So you can run your marketing at the same place you run your shop. To learn more, you can claim your free customer analysis and strategy session and visit seguno.com/winning with Shopify. That's seguno.com/winning with Shopify. Seguno is made for merchants, not marketers.